For $25,000, you could have a brand new Honda Civic or this well-used BMW i8. The Honda will come with a full factory warranty, while the BMW will come with this red tamper dot on the gauge cluster, letting you know someone might have messed with the odometer. And one thing that both of these cars have in common is their large 7-inch infotainment displays. And despite the BMW being a decade older, its screen still looks razor sharp. It's easy to see why so many people pick this Civic. It's the sensible and reliable option. But hey, so was my first wife, and she was no fun. She never moved it like this. But when the doors go up, the reliability goes down. So we've got some work ahead of us. Let's look into that tamper dot. At the same time, we'll take care of that crispy iDrive screen and fix an annoying electronic nag that's going on in this back corner. Let's do it as simple and as cheap as possible. I'm pretty sure we can sort our major issues for under 30 bucks today. So even though we'll waste a lot of time doing that, at least we won't be wasting much money. And by keeping things simple, we're going to create something enjoyable and reliable enough to drive Mondays through Sundays, which is exactly what I've been feeding my dog Cammy. It follows the same principles: simple, real, human-grade ingredients with meat, organs, and superfoods. It keeps Cammy running strong, always fueled up with little added maintenance. Sundays is air-dried, shelf-stable, and vet-formulated right here in the USA, so you don't need to thaw or run anything through a microwave. You just pour it straight from the bag. I'll even admit, before I really understood what was in most dog food, I used to feed Cammy kibble. I even tried mixing in cooked food just to get her to eat it. Turns out she wasn't being picky, she just knew better than I did, and Sundays confirmed that. Cammy clearly can tell a difference. Look at the kibble in one side of my hand, Sundays in the other. Every single time she goes straight for the real stuff. Even when I switch sides in my hand here, she leaves the kibble completely untouched.
You know, if Cammy could talk, I think she'd recommend for all the other dogs out there to hit that link in the description box or visit sundaysfordogs.com/Sam, where you'll get 50% off of your order when you use code SAM at checkout. We think that every dog out there deserves a little bit of Sundays every day. So just hit that link in the description box or visit sundaysfordogs.com/Sam.
Sometimes these things are as easy as removing a trim piece around or behind the screen, and sometimes you got to pull out of the dashboard. I'm feeling something right back here that feels like it's moving. This little trim piece is exposed, exactly what we need to get to. It looks like there's only a couple screws holding this screen in place. Oh, there it goes. Ooh, it's flaking something nasty. It's got dandruff. Taking this thing apart is really easy, but there's just one last thing holding it together, and that's the glue between the actual screen and the casing itself, and that glue is what turned this thing into the crispy, bubbly mess that it is now. Now, ours is so far gone that it worked in our favor. A little bit of pressure on this edge here and the whole thing's separated. If this was any less cooked, it could have been a real pain, but it ended up just being satisfying. Peeling away these chunks of old screen glue like sunburnt skin. Yeah, it's gross, but it was enjoyable to me. And in just a few minutes, I got all this junk off the screen, but what was left behind is a hazy, scratched up mess. Now, I tried rubbing alcohol to clean this up, but it basically just made every flaw more visible. And at this point, the right fix is just to replace the screen, but instead I tried something dumb. I took a dab of vegetable oil and just kind of smeared it on the screen, and it worked. It masked all the scratches and haze like if you put wax on bad paint. Obviously, that wouldn't hold up long term, so I just cleaned all that off and grabbed a leftover bottle of some ceramic coating that I had. Just a drop of this, and it had the same effect. It left a nice gloss, and after a few hours, it was still in perfect shape. I even hit the inside and outside of the plexiglass cover to keep everything clean and help disguise what the sun had done to this thing. And when we put it back in the car from the driver's seat, it looks pretty normal. You never know anything was wrong until, well, you power it on, and then that's when this big black dot appeared on the right side of the screen. Now, I did notice this when we were cleaning things up, and I just thought it was burn-in from an old icon. At this point, the LCD is actually damaged, and again, the proper fix would be to replace the entire thing, but honestly, the dot's off to the side. It doesn't really block anything too important, and well, it's very imperfect, so am I. And for a fix that cost me basically nothing, I'll take it. The backup camera's crystal clear, the menus are readable, and best of all, the previous owner never cleared their contact contact list. So now I've got a whole roster of phone numbers I can sell to data brokers to help fund the actual repairs that this BMW needs. But you tell me down in the comments, would you live with the free fix that we've done here? Would you spend, anywhere from $300 to $500 for just a used replacement part you could swap in?
Apparently, crispy iDrive screens aren't exclusive to just the i8. I've read that a lot of the other models have the same exact issue. So if your BMW has that delamination going on, try cleaning it before spending hundreds of dollars on a replacement. It's very satisfying and obviously makes the car look and work so much better because you can actually read what it's trying to tell you. We got another hard part that needs to be fixed in the back here, but before we get to it, I want to go through the service history on this car. Not only is it the wildest I've ever seen on any of the BMWs I've worked on, I think it will give us a good idea as to exactly why we got that tamper dot on the dashboard. Obviously, the big concern when you see the red dot is that you got a car that had the mileage turned back on it, but by just pulling a history report, you can compare some of the events in here along with the current mileage reading, and that'll tell you in a few seconds whether you got some that's legit or not. Now let's start with when the car was new, before it was even sold with 9 miles on it. One of the first records is that the AC compressor was replaced, and that's actually well documented, not just on the i8, but on all these BMW hybrids. The compressors fail. They're not belt driven like on your typical ICE car. They're all electronic. They are substantially more expensive. Well, BMW definitely just took care of that. I mean, the car hadn't even been sold yet, but it really set the tone going forward to how problematic this car was going to be, because with just 6,000 miles on the clock, the first owner brought it in to get an airbag replaced. This was likely an electrical issue, and they just had it replaced at 6,000 miles. They then brought the car in with right under 11,000 miles on the clock to have the instrument cluster replaced. And when you search BMW i8 instrument clusters, not only will you find a lot of them used for sale online, you'll find that people had a ton of issues with these early on that they just fail out of the blue. And well, that is a big clue as to why we have that red light on the dashboard. We'll get back to that in a second, but we keep going on. Just a few thousand miles later, the original owner brings this car back to the dealership where they get it bought back, and it becomes a lemon car. They cite electrical and battery concerns. And while it doesn't get any more specific than that, at least in this report, we know that an airbag was replaced. We know that an AC compressor that's fully electric was replaced. We know that this screen was replaced. How many more electrical failures can you have before you just want to get out of the problem? And good on the owner, because this car was about to become the service manager's nightmare. Several months later, the car was offered back for sale, it looks like at a dealership as a lemon law. And someone bought it with 15,000 miles, where they drove it for a while until 27,500 miles, where they brought the car in, and it shows that the cooling system was bled and the water pump was replaced. I wonder why they did that. Well, we know why they did that. Cylinder head was probably in the early stages of warping, because at 28,200 miles, they replaced the entire engine. That was just 1 month later, less than 1,000 miles. This car had to have had a bad head gasket. The BMW dealership will not open this engine up. They will only replace the entire engine. And so we've actually got an engine that's got 30,000-ish less miles on it than the odometer is showing. And I am guessing that this was right at the end of the warranty date on this car. Or you know what it could have been? It could have been right within the lemon law warranty period, because you get an extra year of warranty when you buy one of these lemon law cars. It's just a way of the manufacturer showing confidence in the repair of the car when they go and resell it, and it makes it easier for them to sell it. But yeah, this person was within the last several months of their warranty when they got a replacement engine from BMW. And it doesn't end there, because, well, they continue to drive the car. At 43,000 miles, they took the car back to the same BMW dealership to have the cooling system checked again. This is a few years later. I'd have to guess that they're completely out of warranty at this point, because then at 44,600 miles, they had the cooling system bled. And this is kind of proof that even though this car is prone to head failures and head gasket failures, the owners perpetuate this issue by continuing to drive the car when it tells you it's overheating. 2 trips within 2 months and over 1,000 miles. Well, then they go another 1,000-ish miles to an independent service shop where they get the head gasket replaced. So we were on a replacement engine with the replaced head gasket at this point. This is at 45,000 miles. And if you think about it, this is a hybrid. So they could kind of kick this car around town. Part of the time the engine's running, the other part of the time the hybrid drivetrain is picking up the slack. And really, if you're not gunning it all the time and you don't have your foot to the floor in the upper RPM range, you're not going to easily overheat this car. It could be usable around town. That owner seems to have dumped the car shortly after, because it says it showed up online somewhere else. A new person acquired it and they drove the snot out of it, put about 20,000 miles on it in a year's time. New owner seems to have taken care of it until they got to a few hundred miles before we acquired it. The antifreeze coolant was then flushed and changed. And they also say the timing chain was replaced. I'm going to say that's a bunch of nonsense, because every other event in this report shows you exactly what dealer or what service place did the work. This one just says service facility, so I'm thinking somebody typed it up in the system somewhere to make things look good. But this car sat for the most part the last year or so. That's probably why we ended up with some of the weird issues we did, like the door not working right, the cooked iDrive screen, and well, quite possibly that tamper dot. The mileage on the dash is very consistent with the history report I pulled here. I personally don't believe that tamper dot is anything more than, again, another electrical issue within the car, and that was caused by the gauge cluster going out at one point. If you were to take this thing to the dealership out of warranty to get the gauge cluster replaced, I'd imagine it'd be thousands of dollars, because they don't just sell you a new part and the labor to put in the part, then they got to sell you on the programming of the new gauge. And that's the issue with buying a used part, or probably what's currently in the car. Each module in this car has the VIN coded onto it. So when you get a donor part from a used car and install it in your BMW i8, well, then it's got a mismatch VIN. When you do a code read on all the different systems in this car, a lot of them are showing that the gauge cluster VIN does not match up with the rest of the car. So my theory is that gauge cluster went out again at one point in time. Someone bought a used one online, slapped it in, and now we have the tamper dot. The only way to get rid of it is with the BMW service tool. And acquiring that isn't the hard part. From what I understand, they may or may not allow used parts to be coded in, and that's where I'm stuck. And it's another good reason that the car was cheap, but you guys let me know down in the comments, is there a simple way to get rid of that dot without going through the process of taking this to the dealership and spending thousands on a new part and on programming? I'm not sure. But I do know we can save probably several hundred, if not over $1,000, fixing the broken electronic parking brake that this thing currently has. And if we come over here to the actual parking brake, we try and pull it up, push it down, that light should light up, and we have no actual parking brake we could turn on, because according to our code reader here, our right actuator is not working. So our right side would be the passenger side. And this is a pretty common issue on BMWs in general, that the electronic parking brake module just fails. I think they're on the rear brakes here. I'm trying to take a closer look in there. Yeah. You see that guy in there?
With the wheel off, you can clearly see the electronic parking brake. This is how it is on most modern cars, where it's piggybacked on the regular brake caliper. But if we take a look at an older setup, here the silver caliper handles your normal braking, and the yellow one is the parking brake. It's separate, it's mechanical, and they're usually controlled by a lever and some cables, which is simple, effective, and it's really easy to bypass if something were to go wrong. And while I think the electronic version is an improvement, it's more compact, it's cleaner, takes up less space, and there's no effort involved to actuate it, I also think it's one of those quietly engineered systems that ends up benefiting dealerships more than anyone else. And that's because every time you shut off a car with an electronic parking brake, it automatically applies itself. So if you try to do your own brake job with the car off and the parking brake engaged, you're stuck. Now to dealerships, none of this matters because they have scan tools that put the system into a service mode which safely retracts the parking brake. And for DIYers, it's the same thing. Now if you don't have a scan tool and still want to do your own brake jobs, let me show you how to get around it. Now the actuator is only held on with 2 screws. Once it's off, you can see exactly how the system works. Inside, there's a small gear that's driven by a motor. That gear turns a threaded rod inside the caliper, which either pushes or retracts the piston. So if the system fails or the brake is stuck on, You could just take a flathead screwdriver, insert it into the gear that's on the caliper and turn it counterclockwise. That'll manually back the piston off and release the brakes. Now in our case, I'm assuming this actuator is bad. Not only did we have a fault code for it, it's just a common failure on these BMWs. I picked up a third-party replacement on Amazon for just 26 bucks, and it even came with the new O-ring, new hardware, and even a Torx key. So pretty much everything you need to do the job.
Just a little O-ring here that we're going to want to replace. Now we just press the new piece in place very gently. We want to make sure that the splines match up with the part on the caliper. And this is one of those jobs that everyone should be doing themselves because it's almost as simple as changing a light bulb. All right, I just want to put our cables back in place here. Make sure we got a tight electrical connection here. All right, let's see what we got going on here. Remember before, we had that warning light on the dashboard. It was over in this corner right here. It's gone away. We haven't even plugged in our diagnostic tool and reset anything yet. We'll come over to the actual button. And you can even hear it actuating in the back. It's now lit up. It's showing us that our parking brake is on. And then when we go and we press it, you can hear it release. And now our parking warning is gone, but our check engine light is back. That's just because I'm running it without a thermostat. That's the way I like my BMW i8. But when it comes time to move it along, we'll reinstall our thermostat. We will get rid of that engine light. And I think that'll increase the resale value quite a bit. We paid $25,000 for this car. I think it is worth somewhere in the 30s. Since we have fixed that iDrive screen, you can actually read what's going on. Since our door actuator finally works and we got that parking brake warning off the dashboard. If you agree with me, be sure to hit that like button. And even though the BMW i8 might be the most unreliable BMW since the V10 powered M5s, it's a realistic exotic that a lot of people can own, and you can work on it yourself. The real gamble in these cars is, of course, the hybrid drivetrain. Unfortunately, there's no aftermarket battery solutions available for these cars as of yet. The batteries aren't huge like they are in the Teslas. So when someone cracks that code, it will really help anchor the resale values of the i8. We could have another solid 10 years or 10 minutes with our hybrid high voltage battery in this car. Once they die, these things become giant paperweights and the cars will not drive. Until then, I'm running out of stuff to do on this i8. It is a good, usable, working car. I enjoy driving it around town. It gets a lot of attention, and for the price, well, I'll choose it every day over a Civic. Let me know if you would do the same down in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed because I bought a couple other auction supercars. One of them I am super excited about. It has way more cylinders than this one. But with that is very likely to come a much higher repair bill than we've gotten away with on our BMW. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today, and I'll catch you very soon.
Thank you.